Welcome to Private Club Radio, your weekly source for industry education, news and discussion. Broadcasting from Tampa, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Gabriel Aloisi.
Hey, welcome to episode number 111. Number 111. That's got to be special, right? Well, we're going to be joined today by Justin Baer of MemberText, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his technology, which I'm super excited to hear about and share with you. This technology, he thinks, can really change how member communication happens at private clubs. So for years, clubs have been using email as their primary method to let members know about events and happenings at the club. And Justin's system is on a mission to change that. So very interesting stuff there. We're also going to be joined on this episode by Brad Steele. Brad, of course, is the head counsel at the National Club Association. And Brad's going to give us an update on the legal issues and the legislative issues happening in 2018 so that you know what you should be paying attention to this year. There's some interesting things happening in our government in Washington, D.C., and Brad is here to let us all in on the secret. Speaking about letting us all in on the secret, so last week, if you were listening, I told you that you really needed to join the Private Club Radio Listeners Forum because some big things were happening over there. Well, our community has been really supercharged because we've decided, we did a little voting last week on a banner, a tagline, a call to action, a phrase that we could all use when we're on social media, or just something that we could kind of fly as our flag. And the group collectively voted and came up with the hashtag Club Changemaker. And you might have seen some of the posts happening on social media. It's been all a buzz, especially on LinkedIn and Facebook, with people using the new hashtag I'm a hashtag Club Changemaker. And the vision for this, well, I want this to really evolve organically, and it's already starting to do that. But my vision for this is just to let people know the folks in this industry that are doing something remarkable. And if that's you, let the world know that you're doing something remarkable so that we can all follow that hashtag and help support each other. Because every day in this industry, whether you're a manager, a membership director, a board member, or any position that you hold at the club, you're doing something special. We want to let people know about it and really put that on display. So the hashtag Club Changemaker is something that you can use. I made a graphic, so just go to my social profiles. You can pull that graphic down, and you can use it yourself to let the world know what you and your club are doing, or to tag other Club Changemakers out there so that they can be recognized. So check that out. And if you haven't joined our Private Club Radio Listeners Forum, head on over to Facebook and just type Private Club Radio into the search on Facebook, and you'll find that forum. It's a private group, but if you ask, I will open the door and let you in as long as you are a member of a private club, or if you are working at a private club. It's not that secretive, but we don't want to let all the stuff that we're talking about out into the public. So that's why we keep it a private group. One other thing around the hashtag Club Changemaker, I was able to track down a vendor online that could create some gear for us, some promotional items, things like t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, all sorts of different things on that site that you can actually let the world know that you are a Club Changemaker and fly that flag out in public. The other thing you can do is actually buy some of those things for people at your club who are doing something special and give it to them as a reward. So if you head on over to privateclubradio.com, our website, up in the top right in the main menu, you will see a button called Shop, and that will take you to the shop where you can purchase those hoodies, t-shirts, all that cool gear. And as a side benefit, I think that site actually gives me a small commission. So I'll be using that to make this show better. So we'll be spreading the word together and making this show better. It is a win-win. All right, let's bring on our first guest of the day, Mr. Brad Steele from the National Club Association, in this edition of Club Perspectives.
And now, it's time for Club Perspectives presented by the National Club Association.
Well, thanks for joining us for another edition of Club Perspectives presented by the National Club Association. Today, I'm joined by Head Legal Counsel over at the NCA, Brad Steele. Brad, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first, I want to talk to you about tax reform. There's been some big tax legislation that's been passed in Congress, and would love to get the take and see how that affects private clubs out there, Brad.
Sure. Well, where we are, certainly from a National Club Association's perspective and from the private club industry's perspective, we're pleased that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was signed into law at the end of last year, right before Christmas. The president signed that legislation into existence. What's interesting about that is this is obviously the very first real substantive legislative victory for the president, and it is certainly a pro-club, pro-growth initiative. So it's a positive from the president's perspective. In his pocket, he's got something now, but more importantly for our industry, we've got something that I think, while there isn't an immediate and direct impact on private clubs, there certainly is a significant impact on club members. And that's where we're going to see some of the, I think, major benefits we hope for the private club industry.
Yeah, I know as a business owner myself, it's going to put a few more dollars in my pocket, or at least I'll be able to have some taxes taken right off the top there, or not taken, I should say. So I got to think that probably does help a lot of the private club members out there.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we've got a significant number of new tax brackets, and most importantly for our particular industry, members who traditionally join private clubs will be now looking at probably the 32 and 35 and 37% tax bracket rather than the previous ones, which were higher and far more onerous. But more importantly, I think sort of a little known fact about this is that these brackets are obviously indexed, but they're indexed this time to change CPI, Consumer Price Index, rather than CPI-U, which has traditionally been the case. So that means there should be a lower rate of increase for the brackets. The marginal rates are based on a certain amount of money that you make between point A and point B. So for the 35% bracket, it's those who make individually $200,000 a year to $500,000 a year. By being chained CPI, that amount is going to go up, but it's going to go up a little lower and slower than it would if it were the CPI-U. So those individuals who make $500,000 a year, once they make $500,001, they would be bumped into the 37% bracket. Well, with CPI, change CPI, you're going to have a slower increase to that next bracket. So that may also help individuals who traditionally join private clubs. Just from a sort of a little wonky perspective, I would suggest that the change CPI is a little better when we start to look at indexing these tax brackets and the dollar amounts that are in each tax bracket. So that's a good thing. Businesses like yours and others really going to benefit, I think, from the perspective, and certainly from private club members' perspectives, when they own their own business. If they're a small business or a business that is an LLC, they're going to look at Subchapter S corporation. They're going to look at their pass-through and now find that, gee, they get to basically deduct about 20% right off the top. And that means if you're making $100,000 and just use simple figures, you're only looking at $80,000 that's going to be taxed now. And that's a heck of a lot better than dealing with the entire amount that potentially could be taxed. Obviously, you've got your deductions that will be engaged, that you'll be able to deal with. But at the end of the day, that's nice to just get right off the top a 20% deduction. So that helps, again, those individuals who may be members of clubs. So all in all, a positive bill for members who would be spending that extra money, hopefully, at private clubs across the country.
I hope so, for sure. Well, let's talk about some other legislative issues that you're seeing here upcoming in 2018. What are some of the focus that the NCA's got here in the coming year, Brad?
Well, certainly we're looking to see exactly what happens with regard to the immigration issue, because we are looking to ensure that there are, when necessary, applicable visa holders who can come in and do work at clubs either through the H-2B visa program or through others if we need those workers. And obviously in a very, very tight labor market, there will be significant competition for American workers. And if we can't find those workers because of that competition, then we still have to fill those positions. So we then want to make sure that an opportunity for guest workers is available for private clubs. At this point, at least as we discussed today, sort of in the early part of February, we know that the number one issue for Congress and the president may be the Dreamers, those who are part of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Those folks are going to be first and foremost, to be resolved and handled. And in return, I would anticipate some sort of funding for enhanced border security. Not necessarily dealing with visas, but that's step one. Right, so those are what we see on the horizon in terms of satisfying an initial stage of immigration. The next step may be being able to discuss things like those worker visas in a broader context. Now, I say that with the subtle caveat that, surprise, it's an election year. It's amazing how those even number years always come up with the same problem. Mm-hmm. So with it being an election year, there is a very, very short window for any immigration discussion to be had and legislation to be moved on. So I would anticipate that the Dreamers and the border security, if it is going to get done, and there's a significant number of folks, my colleagues, who also serve in the crazy capacity as a lobbyist for associations across D.C., have some significant concerns that even can pass. That first initial salvo of immigration, Dreamers in return for border security, there's some concerns that can even pass. But if it does, then we've got a very, very limited amount of time to take a look at the next tranche of immigration issues, and that would include those guest workers. So we're hoping, and that's something that we're certainly going to continue to push to make sure that there are the opportunities available for clubs if and when they need those foreign workers to come in.
Lobbying for nonprofits has to be just a labor of love, though, Brad. Come on, let's be honest.
Well, it's certainly a labor of love for this industry, and say nonprofits. While we are a nonprofit, we function as a business, and it's not as though we're a nonprofit. We're not a 501c3. So it really is about what we do and how we do it. And what we do is we work on behalf of at least what I believe to be one of the greatest industries in the world, and that is the industry of private clubs. Not because we're exclusive and unique and special, and isn't it great that we're really cool and only a few select people get to come and play in our courses. It's because of the people who really make up the private club industry. It's the COOs at the clubs across the United States. It's their staff who make the environment even better. I mean, you can go to any five-star restaurant and get a great meal, but you're never going to have them be able to know who you are, know what you like, and really engage with you as staff at a private club does. So let me tell you, working in this particular industry is just great because of the people who make it so interesting, so complete for their members, and so enjoyable for all of us. So that's really the joy of it, because Lord knows it ain't screaming at members of Congress.
Well said, Brad. That's great. Well, let's talk about some more people issues. Let's talk about the midterm elections that are coming up this year, and this is going to be an interesting 2018, I got to imagine.
That would be the understatement, I think, of the decade. This is going to be crazy. Let's cut to the chase. I think the biggest issue that we're looking at right now is certainly, as you first asked a little bit about some of the legislative initiatives that are going on or that we anticipate seeing in 2018. I can tell you that all of those legislative initiatives, anything from immigration even into infrastructure that may be out there, again, very, very limited amount of time in which they can do that. As a matter of fact, I think Texas has its primaries for both Republican and Democratic nominations for the general election in March, so in less than a month's time from now. And there's a special election in Pennsylvania in a House seat that is up. Representative Murphy has retired, and in so doing has caused that seat to be open. That election that actual election, the special election to select the congressman, will be taking place, I think, on March 13th. And so, we've even got a shorter amount of time before we really start talking about politics. We start talking about the election cycle, because once the primaries start to get going, once the Pennsylvania special election is done, it's a Republican seat in a relatively Republican area, but this will be a bellwether election. So if it happens to go Democratic, the reality is there will be more consternation inside the Capitol and in the White House regarding how they're going to maintain their majorities, such that would probably sideline any other legislative initiatives. Most of that, which will take place in Congress for the next, I'd say, 8 months, will be those that really focus on the base of the party, to make sure that those individuals who are conservative or liberal get out to vote. So both parties will be pushing hard, and when you push on issues that are really focused solely on the base of the party, you certainly can't reach compromise. You certainly can't get to a deal being done on those legislative initiatives, which means there ain't going to be much that's passed in Congress. That's really what I see as we start to move down the road. And a lot of that has to do with the makeup, obviously, of both the House and the Senate. Obviously, with just 51 Republicans in the United States Senate, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, is really worried about maintaining control, maintaining the majority, maintaining his position. So he's really got an incentive to focus on that base, get them all ginned up and ready to come out and vote for Republican candidates who are up for election. And there are only 8 of those in the Senate, but also pushing to increase his majority and protect that majority, right? So it's even though they've only got 8 up for re-election, he's certainly going to work hard to make sure that the legislative initiatives meld well with the campaign sort of perspective and strategy to help him grow those numbers and protect those 8 who are running for re-election. And of course, on the House side, while it's very difficult to anticipate that you'll lose, or Republicans would lose 24 seats, which is what would have to happen for them to lose majority, we have to take into consideration, number one, the party always controlling the White House loses seats in the House of Representatives during the midterm election of the president's first term. No ifs, no ands, no buts. It happens. Additionally, I think an interesting sort of aside is that currently over 30 Republicans who are current members of the House have decided not to run for re-election. Some have decided to move on to run for the Senate or governor or attorney general, and some have just decided to retire. But that number is an interesting number because the last time we've seen that many, especially in the majority, decide not to run for re-election took place in 1994 with over Democrats having 28 retirements. So we all know what ultimately happened in 1994. It was the Republican Revolution. Newt Gingrich became Speaker of the House. Again, different scenario, different district configurations, different political environment. But it's just an interesting number when you start to see, 30 Republicans decided not to run for re-election to the House. That's the most since 28 Democrats did it. And we know what happened in 94. It kind of makes you stop and go, and as I say, that's why that March 13th Pennsylvania special election will be exceptionally important. And I think, as I say, if it happens to be a closer than expected race, but the Republicans win, the reality is then it's sort of the status quo. Okay, it'll be a sigh of relief from the Republican majority. If the Democrat were to be successful in that particular special election, it's going to be a mad dash between March 14th and November 6th. So keep your seatbelt buckled. It should be quite interesting, and it'll be fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you'll keep your eye close on those, and I'm sure later in the year we'll actually be looking at some of those races a little bit more closely as we do every year. So
absolutely.
Well, last thing I wanted to touch on before we let you go, Brad, is the National Club Conference going to be April 16th through 18th in Los Angeles this year in Hollywood. I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It's going to be I think I can say with all sincerity, this is going to be the best that we've had. We're pleased to say that Peter Ueberroth is going to be one of our keynotes. Additionally, Chip Brewer, President and CEO of Callaway Golf, is going to be presenting. Bill Walsh, the CEO of Viceroy Hotel Group, is an outstanding speaker, and really excited to have him. Additionally, we're going to have a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient who's there as well. So we're really honored that one who served the country so well as a recipient of that extremely distinguished award would be gracious enough to spend some time with us. So we've got some true leaders, not only in the industry, but also in life, who will be able to provide some perspectives, and I think even I'm going to speak. So, oh, good God, that may turn people off. I forget I said that. But there'll be a lot to look forward to. Some great venues. Obviously, we'll be at the California Club, Jonathan Club. We'll hold the event at the Millennium Biltmore Hotel, a storied hotel in LA, especially when you think about the Academy Awards. It was first held there at the Millennium at the Biltmore. So it's really got some history. And we're really looking forward to it. I think the most exciting thing is the Academy of Magical Arts. That's going to be it's a VIP
I can't wait for
dinner. That one's going to be very, very fun for our corporate sponsors, or our NCA corporate partners, for our board, both the foundation board and our NCA board, as well as those who've been gracious enough to contribute to Club Pack. They'll all be spending some time at the Academy of Magical Arts to have a little surprise provided for them, and that'll be fun. That'll be Sunday the 15th. Obviously, we're excited about thanking those who have given so much to the National Club Association. We decided to do that with a VIP dinner for those individuals. But all in all, going to be a great event. Look forward to all of your listeners spending some time not only with you. I know you're there. We really appreciate you continuing to support the National Club Conference, but we're excited about having everybody show up in Hollywood from the 16th to the 18th of April and having a little fun in Tinseltown.
A lot of fun it'll be for sure. Brad, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Club Perspectives, and we'll talk to you very soon down the line here, Brad.
Always a pleasure. Take care, Gabe.
To learn more about the National Club Association, please visit nationalclub.org.
Brad always brings us something insightful here on Private Club Radio, so thank you, Brad. All right, up next is our featured guest. Well, my guest today is Justin Baer, founder of MemberText, which you are going to learn a lot about on this episode. He was actually introduced to us by a longtime listener and supporter of this show, Melissa Hansen from the club at Old Cypress, and wanted to give her a shout out. But Justin's a tech entrepreneur. He successfully built and sold an event app for the hospitality industry. And prior to the event app startup, Justin founded the Cure Card, which was a national consumer loyalty card that generated over $2.5 million for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. He's a member of Woodmont Country Club. Justin, welcome to Private Club Radio.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so excited to have you on here because you and I were talking a few weeks back. I was learning a little bit more about your technology, and I'd love for you to just give us a background on how you came up with the idea and what MemberText can actually do for clubs out there.
Perfect. So yeah, I've been a club member for 30 years. Actually, it's been three different clubs, and just very friendly with our GM. And I guess I was stopping in the office, and he was telling me, look, we send these emails out all the time, and members come in and they say, hey, I never got them. And they're just not showing up, and we kind of have this big problem, and this is kind of a big theme throughout, which is now more than ever, our members are facing with so many kind of competitive things to get top of mind and attention, whether it's Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and all these fitness kind of things are popping up. My wife does Orange Theory and spinning, and there's so many things pulling our members away from the club that basically just email's not cutting it anymore. And you're seeing these open rates coming down and all these kind of stats. So text messaging is just such a natural win that the open rates are huge. It's at 98%. And, I basically pitched this idea to the GM, and he's like, it's a layup. And so it just started with that. So I've been, like I said, I was been in tech and club member. And I'm like, clubs need a simple, easy way they can onboard the members. That's kind of like our secret sauce. But then once they're on, being able to send them messages about events happening, announcements. We had a bunch of clubs in Texas and unfortunately in Florida use it for the hurricane and letting the members know about things happening at the club. And then some other really neat features I think we'll talk about. So that was kind of the genesis of it.
Totally. So I want to make sure that people kind of understand the difference here of what your program does versus, let's say, another mobile application out there. So can you explain the difference between a mobile application and this text messaging based platform you've built?
Yes. So ours is not an app. It's nothing that the members have to download, which I know is somewhat difficult for these clubs to get members to download the app. In fact, clubs are using our text program to send a text to membership saying, hey, did you know we have an app at the club? Click here to download it. And it takes them right to the app store, which is huge. But the big difference between our messaging and let's say your app that says, oh, we have messaging and kind of push notifications is what they call them, is text messages live in the text box. So like when you send your friend a note saying, hey, do you want to go to dinner tonight? That's in your text inbox. Whereas kind of your app has its push notification, and there's a reason why push notification open rates are like kind of sub 10%, which is most people don't turn on notifications. And then not only do they have to turn on notifications, they have to turn on alerts. And if they don't do either one of those, the message never really even gets to the membership. But most importantly is even this kind of subconscious way that if I'm texting my friend, hey, what are you doing for dinner? That the note from the club about, hey, don't forget to sign up for the member guest tournament is like in the same inbox. And so there's kind of a connection there that just is huge.
Mm-hmm. Sure, totally. Yeah, I think I'm much more apt to probably read a text message from my club than I would an email, because their emails have gotten so stale.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that then, because that's another thing that's happening is email communication is, in your opinion, kind of going by the wayside as well. Can you tell folks a little bit about why you believe email is sort of dying off?
Yeah, so a few different reasons why we're seeing like these open rates going down and click-through rates. One is the average person gets almost 3,000 emails a month in their inbox. That's the average person. For club members, I'm sure you have members that get 5,000, even 6,000. And so when you're trying to get your 8, 9, 10 club emails into somebody that gets 5,000 emails, it's like almost impossible. So that's like the first thing. The other big reason is, if you notice, probably a lot of your members use Gmail, and actually I was on a demo the other day and a client said, hey, Outlook is now doing the same thing. Gmail created this thing called this promotions folder, which basically sifts out any message that's sent to a large number of people and puts it in there. So it's basically a junk mail folder, almost spam. And now Outlook created this thing called this other folder that they just released, kind of piggybacking on Gmail, a few years behind. But these are all things affecting open rates, and click-through rates, and plus just the amount of email people are getting is just skyrocketing. So it's just so hard to get top of mind.
Yeah. In fact, the other day I was looking for something. So it wasn't a club communication, but it was some other product that I get notifications from, and I actually needed to like request a new password or something. And I was so mad because I couldn't find this email anywhere, and it happened to be that it was just sitting in the promotions folder, which I never look at. I just never. And I saw all these emails, like a million emails in there that I have never read. It was crazy.
Yep. That's a huge problem. And that's why members walk in all the time and say, hey, I didn't get the message. I didn't know about this. And they were like, well, we sent you an email about it. And they just don't get it. That especially happens like for your timely stuff. Like let's say the pool is closed unexpectedly. They send a text out, or they send an email out, and they say, the pool has unexpected maintenance. We're going to open at 2 p.m. Well, they still get the families showing up with all the floats and the towels, at 11 a.m. and saying, oh, well, what happened? I said, well, we sent you a text, we sent you an email. And, they're always like, oh, we never got it. So it's kind of huge for the timely messages too.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah, absolutely. So are you getting any pushback from some of your clients or some of the clubs out there that members, are you finding that they're interested in receiving information via text, or is it that they think that's a little bit too intrusive?
They're definitely. So when we get an onboard, we usually pick up about 70% of membership right in the first heads up. Hey, we're going to start text messaging. So they all want to get it. Or now, it's a large percentage that wants to get it. Now, best practices, because texts have such a high open rate, we recommend really like 4 to 6 a month to the all members as a good best practice. 1 to 2 a week. And so like, the marketing person or the GM comes in and say, what's our most important announcement of the week? That's what you're going to send out in a text. So you don't want to blow this thing. You don't want to send too many texts. So 4 to 6 a month is a good number to your all member group. And then we have like little subgroups. So once somebody joins, you can have them say, hey, we have special interest groups here at the club. Reply back fitness, or reply back tennis, or like TPC has a wine club. They reply back wine club. And then, so those little subgroups could have their own little cadence, which could be another 1 a week. But, just be mindful not to overdo the text just because they're so effective. And we want to train membership to know that, hey, when they get a text, to kind of take a second look at it in a way.
Sure. Now, when you get a text from the club, Justin, is it that, let's say I reply back. So maybe I get a text that, the member guest is happening in a couple weeks, and do I want to sign up? And maybe I say, yes, I do want to sign up. Does that then send a message to everybody in the club, or just back to the person who sent the message? How does it all work?
Yeah, no, just to the marketing manager there at the club. It does not go to the all membership. So that's actually one of the really neat features, and I think a big trend for 2018, not just in our text feature that we launched, but just kind of everywhere. We were talking about this before, which is allowing members and kind of eliminating friction and hurdles to get members sign up to things. So if you think about Amazon, we were saying it, right? Like you can buy a swing set in a swipe, literally swiping on the app and you're buying it. Well, with kind of our text feature and our inbox feature, you can send a text out to membership, and let's say it's the member guest, or it's the soiree, and you could say, usually clubs would send a text out and saying, hey, don't forget to sign up for their soiree. It's always a great event. Only 8 spots left. Call this number to sign up, or click this link to fill out the form. Obviously, from the club's perspective, getting them to click, that's the best, right? But if you're somebody going up in the elevator into your office, running to a meeting, you really don't have time to call the club and kind of hang on the phone for 3 minutes, and you don't have time to click a link and fill out a whole form. But you do have 2 seconds to literally reply back, sign me up, or I'm in. And then that message would go into your inbox, and the person that kind of runs the account or in your dashboard could reply back, okay, great, you're all signed up. We'll see you and, Mr. Johnson, at the soiree. So it just eliminates all friction. It's just awesome. And this can be a huge trend.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, there's a big problem with clubs in terms of getting people to RSVP for their events, and this sounds like that solves that solution, in addition to being able to get the relevant and timely messages out to the members when they need it. So I love that about this. Are you finding that actually even older people are starting to send more text messages these days? What kind of research have you done about that?
We have. So we did research this because everyone's, we know, I mean, when I do a demo, I don't even I have a slide about, anybody under 50 at this point wanting to, we know they don't want to speak on the phone to anybody anymore. They don't want to probably speak to you in person either.
Right.
But everyone's like, oh, what about my seniors? I have an old club and we're old school. The research is showing seniors are the fastest growing users of text message. They all know how to do it. They all have smartphones now. And in fact, they're texting more than they are emailing. So it's really not an issue anymore. And the adoption is huge.
Yeah, I would say in the last couple of years, it really seemed to skyrocket, where a lot of folks in the older generations really started to use text messaging as a platform. In fact, my own dad, who's probably listening to this episode because he listens to every week here on Private Club Radio, he's a big time text message user now, which I never would have guessed. But I got him a smartphone for Christmas a few years back, and he's really taken to that. So I can him using that, and I know a lot of his friends, that's how he communicates with them. So just as a one man's small observation, I definitely think that trend is going in the right direction. Let's talk about some of the clubs that have implemented this system, Justin. I know you've gotten a lot of traction down here near me in South Florida and the west coast of Florida. Can you talk about some of the clubs that are taking on the technology and what types of ROI they're seeing?
Yeah, so we are, close to being almost in every state. Down in Florida, we're Naples Yacht Club and Eau Gallie and Addison Reserve, kind of on the East Coast, I should say. But the ROIs are, if you just look at, hey, can we increase 3 additional people to our events a year, 3 per event, or can we drive 5 additional tables a week? I have clubs that on a Tuesday or Wednesday look at their book and look at their dining book and say, let's fill the place up on Wednesday. At 1:00, they can send a text out saying, hey, we're doing half price wine night. Chef Lisa is doing an incredible crab cake dinner. Come make a reservation. Click to call. And by 1:03, the whole membership's seen it. And just the power of suggestion alone drives the traffic. So it's huge. The ROI is just on the adding increase to event revenue, dining revenue, golf revenue is huge. And that doesn't even include the ability to send messages out about, hey, we have a frost delay, or we have water on the tennis courts, and just kind of that whole added value piece to it.
Yeah. What would you say that the deliverability is in terms of, text-based messages versus the push notifications versus emails right now?
So text message notifications are showing about 98% open rate, which is huge. And that's 4 to 6 times greater and also has a 46% response rate, which is 4 to 6 times greater than email. So you send an email and say, hey, don't forget to sign up for our member guest, click this link. You send the exact same message in a text message, and you're going to get 4 to 6 times more clicks, which is just huge.
Wow.
So email open rates, we're seeing, the average is around 20%. That's national average. I'm seeing that clubs get a little bit higher, let's say 20 or 30%, and then push is under 10. And there's some more reasons behind kind of your push notifications not getting the attention. Have you noticed like Uber, when Uber has an incredible app, but when your car shows up, they send you a text message, which is because texts get read and most people don't have these notifications turned on. But so, yeah, text is just incredible.
Yeah, as we discussed before, I created an app about 2 years ago, and it did have a push notification feature, and it was such a hassle. Honestly, we would get so many tech support requests because people like, I'm not getting the messages, and we're like, well, did you turn on, push notifications? Did you give access to this app? And yada yada yada. And it's like people just don't get that, but they do get text messages, which just show up, and you don't have to do any extra work. So
exactly,
the concept is pretty cool. Now, can multiple people at the club, for instance, different department heads, be able to send these specific messages? You mentioned you can kind of segment the different groups that receive certain messages. Can you have different people have access to this? Is it like a dashboard or something that they access it?
Yes. So you can, exactly. So you can have multiple kind of people on your team have access to the portal. They can even have their own portal if they wanted. And it's so simple to send a text message. I mean, when I send emails, I'm sure Gabe, you probably send emails. It could take at least 30, maybe 45 minutes by the time I write an email and come up with a funny subject line and then put images in it and then test it. And then I always find a typo and go back and then send myself on. With text messages, like say it in 160 characters. No subject lines, no images. It's just text. Obviously, you want to put a call to action in there, but it's so simple. And we have a scheduler in the app as well. So you can come in and schedule the whole month's worth of text if you want, or
nice.
Say, I don't want this text to go out now. I want us to go out on Thursday, at 3 p.m. So it's very cool.
That's very cool. That saves a lot of time, I would think, doing it that way, where you can just throughout the a month's long, all the different notifications that you plan on sending, and be a little bit more strategic with your communications, which I always coach my clients that's important, not just to be reactive, but to be proactive. So love that as well. Now, if folks want to maybe demo the technology or learn more, how do they go about doing that, Justin?
So you can go to membertext.net. So it's .net, not .com. So membertext.net, but also any of your listeners, if they want to see what it looks or see it right on their phone, you can text the word club. So CLUB, text club to 71441. So you're going to send the message to 71441. And in the message part, just type in club. And you kind of get like a little bit of a demo on kind of how clubs are using it to obviously increase member engagement, and it's a pretty neat demo. And then also, just go to membertext.net. And I know we talked about this, and really for any, and just kind of do a special that for any listener, just say, hey, Gabe sent me, I heard you on Private Club Radio, and you're going to actually get a free setup, which is actually worth $750. So it's totally turnkey setup. You guys don't have to do anything. I'll set you all up. I'll set the whole, all your groups, the works. So that's, just so text club to 71441 or go to membertext.net and just, you can fill out that form and we can hop on a demo, and I'm happy to kind of run through the research and presentation to your GM or your whole staff.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for offering our listeners that $750 value on the free setup. I'm sure quite a few of them will take advantage of that offer. So just let them know that you heard about it here on Private Club Radio. Would love for you to check out what Justin has built. Justin, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for letting us know what's going on in your world and joining us here on Private Club Radio today.
Thanks, Gabe. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on your show and the new book. It's awesome. Really appreciate it.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Private Club Radio. Thanks as always for joining me. It is really just a pleasure to put this show on for you every week. And I want to remind you one last time, go on over to facebook.com and just type Private Club Radio into the search bar up top. You'll find the Private Club Radio Listeners Forum pop right up, and would love to have you join that conversation as we help move this industry forward, because every listener of this show is a club change maker. Until next time, here's to your membership success.
Private Club Radio is brought to you by Concert Golf Partners, helping to preserve and enhance private golf and country clubs. Concert Golf has the capital, expertise, and private club hospitality experience to help upscale private clubs achieving long-term success and membership growth. For 25 years, Concert Golf has allowed private club members to focus on simply enjoying their club. Visit concertgolfpartners.com to learn more about the recapitalization process.